These are A&P oral test questions. What is considered the basic building block of all material? The atom. What is the most important law applicable to the study of electricity? E equals I times R. How is Ohm's law expressed as a quotation? E equals I times R. I equals E divided by R, or R equals E divided by I. What are the elements of Ohm's law? Voltage is E, current is I, and resistance is R. What are the four sources of electrical energy? We have thermal, light, pressure, and chemical. What does a basic DC electric circuit consist of? It consists of a source, the battery, resistance or the load, and the conductors or wires. The represents capacitance in an AC circuit. Capacitor, it's the same as a condenser. What is the function of a capacitor? To store electricity. What is the unit of measure for capacitance? That's a farad. What is the standard unit of frequency measured in hertz? What is the basic component that only allows current to flow in one direction? A diode. It's an electrical check valve. What is inductance? When voltage is induced by magnetic flux lines in a coil in an AC circuit, the induced voltage is opposite in direction to the applied voltage and opposite any change in alternating current. The ability to store electrical energy in electromagnetic fields. What is one advantage of AC circuits over DC circuits in an aircraft? 1. AC can be transmitted over long distances more readily and more economically than DC. Space and weight can be saved. Circuit breakers will operate satisfactorily at altitude. AC devices are smaller and simpler. Most 12-volt aircraft systems have special equipment that requires a certain amount of 400 cycle AC current. What is the definition of a short circuit? Well, a short circuit is an unintentional low resistance path between a component, ground, and a conductor. What is an example of an inductor in a magneto? Inductor, it induces, that would be the coil. What is impedance? The total opposition to the flow of current in an electrical circuit, known as total resistance. What causes opposition to the flow of current in an AC circuit? Inductive and capacitive reactance. What is the unit of measure for impedance? That's the ohm. What is the general purpose of a resistor? To limit current. How many the value of a small fixed resistor be determined by the color bands on the resistor? There's plenty of ways to remember that. What are two things that happen when current flows through a conductor? A magnetic field is generated and the conductor heats up. Don't touch that cigarette lighter. What are two things that happen when current flows through a conductor? The magnetic field is generated and the conductor heats up. Remember that. What is the common name for the lines of force that make up a field surrounding a magnet? Magnetic flux lines. What is magnetism? The property of an object to attract certain metallic substances. What is the difference between permanent and temporary magnets? When an external magnetizing force is removed, permanent magnets retain their magnetism for an extended time. Temporary magnets quickly lose most of their magnetism. What is the concept that describes a relationship between electricity and magnetism? Electromagnetism. What are the four factors that affect the resistance of an electrical conductor? The wire gauge, the length, the temperature, and the material. What is the unit of measure of power in a DC circuit? That would be the watt. Amps times volts equals watts. P equals I times E. 746 watts. 746 is equal to 1 horsepower. What is a kilowatt? That is 1,000 watts. Kilo means 1,000. In a DC circuit, what occurs when voltage is increased while resistance remains constant? There will be an increase in current. You increase the voltage, you increase the current. What are the 3 types of DC electrical circuits? They are series circuits, parallel, and complex circuits, which are series and parallel circuits. A 24-volt lead-acid battery has how many cells? Remember this. 1 cell for every 2 volts, correct? So that would be 12. 12 cells equals 24 volts. What is the most frequent cause of damage to solid-state components in integrated circuits? Electrostatic discharge, ESD. Remember, ground yourself before you touch anything static sensitive. ESD is from the human body due to careless handling. What are the units that battery capacity is measured in? Amp hours. How many amp hours will it run? What should be the specific gravity of the electrolyte in a fully charged lead-acid battery? Should always be between 1.275 and 1.300. Remember, 1275, 1300. What instrument is used to determine the specific gravity of electrolyte in a lead-acid battery? The hydrometer. Hydrometers will check that. Why can a hydrometer not be used to determine the charge of a nickel-cadmium battery? Because the electrolyte specific gravity does not change with the state of charge in a NiCad battery. It remains constant, the same. When using a hydrometer to check the lead-acid battery, what temperature must a correction factor be applied to the reading? Adjustments must be made if the temperature of the electrolyte is above 90 or below 70. Above 90, below 70. Anything in between, good to go. What is electromagnetic induction? It is the transfer of electrical energy by means of a magnetic field, lines of flux, transferring voltage from one conductor to another without physically touching. This is the principle of transformer operation, just like a magneto. You have your primary and your secondary. It moves from one to the other without touching. How are battery compartments protected against corrosion? I'll have to remember this one. They are coated with special corrosion-resistant paint, such as bituminous paint. What should be the correct electrolyte level in a properly serviced battery? It should be approximately 3/8 of an inch above the plates. If the battery has baffle plates above the cell plates, the electrolyte level should be up to the hole in the baffle plate in each cell. What are paralleling generators and how is the load distributed? This is when 2 or more generators are operated at the same time to supply power for a load that must be shared equally. They share equally when they're parallel. Describe a no-trip circuit breaker. Trip-free. A trip-free breaker makes it impossible to manually hold the circuit closed when excessive current is flowing. It pops when the circuit gets hot and it cannot be reset until it is cooled off. Can you store NiCad and lead-acid batteries together? Probably wouldn't be a good idea. No, the fumes from lead-acid batteries can contaminate the electrolyte in the NiCad battery. Not good. Why should nickel-cadmium batteries and lead-acid batteries not be serviced in the same area? That would be for the same reason. The electrolyte and fumes from lead-acid batteries can contaminate the electrolyte in the nickel-cadmium battery. What could cause a nickel-cadmium battery to fail to deliver its rated capacity? Cell imbalance or faulty cells? What is the result of an imbalanced cell in a nickel-cadmium battery? What's the result? Well, when a cell has a low internal resistance, the current will increase across the cell, causing it to heat up. Remember, resistance goes down, current goes up, gets hot. What happens to the specific gravity of the electrolyte in a lead-acid battery when the temperature changes? Specific gravity readings on a hydrometer will vary with temperature variations. For example, as the temperature of the electrolyte increases, the specific gravity reading will be high, and colder electrolyte will have a lower reading. Cold goes down, heat goes up. What is an LED? Do you know what an LED is? I'll tell you. It's a light emitting diode. They're everywhere now. They've taken over the world. Light emitting diodes. What is a SLA battery? SLA. It's a trick question. It's a sealed lead acid battery. Pretty simple, huh? Sealed lead acid, SLA. What is the basic unit and measure for inductance? Henry. Remember, Henry is inductance. What prevents reverse current flow in a DC alternator? We have a reverse current cutout. How many wires may be installed on a single terminal lug? That many. That many right there. 4. How do you determine and identify wire types? They got lettering on the insulation. It's really simple. You just read the lettering. Name some functions of a voltmeter, multimeter. You have volts, current, and resistance. Volts, current, and resistance. Or volts, amps, and ohms. How would a technician connect a multimeter in a circuit to read current? When you're reading current, you insert the multimeter leads in series by opening or breaking the circuit. Name 2 types of resistors. Well, we have variable resistors with a little pod. You can turn a screw or a slider, or you have a fixed resistor which has color bands. Or if it's a sandbar, it's just a square block, say the ohms on the side. What is the difference between an and an OR logic gate? An OR logic gate needs one input, one or the other. Remember, OR, one or the other to have an output. An AND logic gate needs one and another, or both inputs, to have an output. What are 2 materials that conductors are made of? We make them out of aluminum and copper. What component changes electrical energy let me rephrase, start over. What component changes electrical energy of a given voltage into electrical energy at a different voltage level? Changes the voltage. Steps it up or steps it down. We have a transformer. Transformers do that. Describe a capacitor. 2 plates with a dielectric in the middle. Pretty simple. What is an inverter? An inverter changes electricity from DC power to AC. It inverts it. What is the difference between a conventional current flow theory and electron flow? Well, I'll tell you. I'll read you the answer and you can determine that. Conventional current flow theory is a visualization of current as flowing from positive to negative. In actual practice, the electrons in the circuit flow from negative to positive, opposite of what you thought. They're attracted to the positive. That's which way the electrons go, negative to positive. What is Kirchhoff's voltage law? Kirchhoff's voltage law states that the algebraic sum of all voltages around a closed path or loop is 0. Another way of saying it is that the sum of all the voltage drops equals the total source of the voltage. So all the voltage drops equal the source voltage or the battery voltage. We are in aircraft drawings now. When is a full sectional view used on an aircraft drawing? Full sectional view? When the interior construction or hidden features of an object cannot be shown clearly by the exterior views, then we will use the full section view. What type of lines are used on aircraft drawings to indicate hidden views, center lines, and alternate position lines? A hidden view line is a medium width line made up of short dashes. That's a hidden view. It represents and edge image that cannot be seen when looking at the part from a specific position. Center lines are thin lines composed of alternating long and short dashes and are used to indicate the center of an object or center of a void. Alternate position lines are medium lines composed of one long and two short, evenly spaced dashes. They are used to show alternate position of a part or the relative position of a missing part. Here, we'll show them to you right here. See them right there? That was Our dimension lines drawn on an aircraft drawing. Dimension lines are solid and usually broken midpoint where they insert the dimension or the length. They are also called extension lines. What is a sketch for a repair? It's a basic drawing that shows specific information, provides minimum detail needed to manufacture the part. How may a aircraft drawing of a part be drawn to bring out pertinent details? Pertinent details of an aircraft drawing by drawing a detailed view at a larger scale than the principal view. What type of drawing is most helpful in troubleshooting a system? A schematic. I use schematic diagrams at my work in maintenance. Troubleshoot equipment lots of times. Define tolerance. As used in aircraft drawings, tolerance. Well, the difference between the plus and minus allowable dimension. So if it's plus or minus 5, the tolerance is going to be 10. 5 in either direction from the dimension. So the tolerance is the given maximum or minimum. Define clearance as used in aircraft drawings. Clearance is the dimension given for the space between the parts. Like you're going to have clearance in your bearings, of course. If there's no clearance, it'll probably get really hot because there'll be no oil in between there. What is a fuselage station number? It is the distance from the datum measured in inches along the longitudinal axis from the datum measured to the station or position. What information is given in the block of a blueprint? Well, the drawing numbers, the name of the part or assembly, the scale, the date, the name of the firm, the name of the draftsman, the checker, and the approving official is all in there. There'll also probably be revisions if it's been revised. But it's just saying what information is given. Where is the title block usually found in an aircraft drawing? The lower right corner. They're usually there, lower right corner. We are now almost to the end of this part. What dimensions used? Why are dimensions used and how are they shown on aircraft drawings? Dimensions are solid, narrow lines broken at midpoint for the insertion of measurements. They are used to indicate the size of an object. Remember, the dimension lines, they are solid. And they'll just have like the measurement in the middle. How can a change to an aircraft drawing be identified? Remember, we were talking about this one. How can the drawing change be identified? Because it has a revision number, A, B, C, etc. The revision letters are usually listed in a table next to the title block or in the corner of the drawing. Probably be in the lower right corner again. What is the bill of materials associated with aircraft blueprints? Well, bill of materials, it is a list of materials and parts necessary for fabrication or assembly of a component or system. Why are symbols used by manufacturers when drawing aircraft blueprints? Why would they use symbols? Symbols are a type of shorthand used in drawings. They express the characteristics of a component with a minimum amount of drawing or writing. So just makes things easier. You draw a picture, symbol, instead of writing a whole sentence there. What is an orthographic projection? A way of illustrating an object in a drawing by showing different views at right angles to each other, such as the fronts and the sides. That's orthographic. How many views are required to determine the shape of an object? Well, we usually have 3. The front, the right, and the top. What is the purpose of one view drawings? Well, if you have a one view drawing, it's probably going to be something flat, like it'll be a gasket, a shim, or a plate. It's a uniform thickness, so you don't really need to have a lot of views. What are schematic diagrams generally used for? They are mainly used for troubleshooting. Remember, schematics are troubleshooting tools. Should we do the weight and balance stuff, or should we skip that? Yes. Only 10 pages. I'll go through this and then I'll upload it to YouTube and everybody can say, oh God, this guy's horrible at doing this stuff. The weight and balance system commonly employed among aircraft consists of three equally important elements. What are they? The weighing of the aircraft, maintaining the weight and balance records, and the proper loading of the aircraft. It's pretty important to load the aircraft properly. What is the datum and its purpose when making weight and balance computations? It's an imaginary vertical line or plane from which all measurements are taken both forward and aft to determine the relative location of items in an aircraft. What items concerning weight and balance could be found in the TCDS, Type Certificate Data Sheet, TCDS? You're going to find the datum, CG limits, unusable fuel and oil, baggage capacity, seat locations. You'll find the fuel capacity. You'll find the leveling means, the engine horsepower, the weight maximum. And if you want to remember this, it's called D-Cubs-Flu. The D-Cubs-Flu. So datum, CG, unusable fuel and oil, baggage capacity, seats, fuel capacity, leveling means, engine horsepower, and weight. The Cubs flew. Did they fly? I don't know. Maybe. What is the purpose of weight and balance control? For safety and efficiency in flight. When computing weight and balance, what is a moment and how is it obtained? Moment is a force which tends to rotate the aircraft about one of its axes. It is obtained by multiplying the weight of an item in pounds by the distance of the item from the datum in inches. It's expressed in inch pounds. Weight times distance equals moment. So it's W times A time equals M. So how would a negative moment be obtained forward of the datum? You're going to add weight forward of the datum if you want a negative. You're going to do the opposite. So, what is the arm of an item and how is it obtained? The arm. The arm is the distance in inches. An item is located either forward or aft of the datum. It is obtained either by actual measurement or from aircraft weight and balance records. What is tare weight? Is it tare or tar weight? I think it's tare weight. And how is it handled when making weight and balance calculations? Tare is the weight of extra equipment used for weighing the aircraft, such as chocks, blocks, jacks, and chains. Tare weights must be subtracted from the scale reading to obtain the empty weight of the aircraft. What is meant by minimum fuel and how is it calculated for weight and balance? The amount of fuel needed for an extreme condition check to see if the center of gravity will be out of limits in this situation. For a reciprocating engine airplane, the calculation is maximum except takeoff horsepower. The calculation is maximum except takeoff horsepower divided by 2. METO divided by 2 is what their acronym is. Maximum except takeoff horsepower. Okay? I'll have to look into that one a little bit better. What is meant by residual fuel? Well, residual fuel is the fuel remaining in the tank, sumps, lines, and engine after draining. It is part of the aircraft's empty weight. It's all the oil and fuel you just can't get out even if you tried. What is meant by the center of gravity range? The range of the center of gravity. It is the distance in inches from the most forward acceptable center of gravity to the most rearward acceptable center of gravity. What is an aircraft loading graph? A method for determining load distribution so that the aircraft remains within its operating CG range. How would you determine the empty weight and empty CG of an aircraft if all the weight and balance records are missing? You probably have to reweigh the aircraft and calculate a new weight and balance record. If you don't have anything to go by, it's the only way to do it. Reweigh the whole bang. Probably won't be much fun. I always try to keep my weight and balance on my airplane up to par. What is the difference between fixed wing and rotor wing helicopter aircraft CG ranges? Most helicopters have a more restrictive CG range. Some are less than 3 inches the CG range. Man, that's pretty tight. Don't make no mistakes there. When weighing an aircraft to determine the empty weight CG, what must you do regarding the fixed equipment which is normally carried in the aircraft? All operations equipment, whether it is required, optional, or special equipment, must be included in the aircraft's empty weight. So what doing the fixed equipment? Well, it's already going to be in there because it's fixed, right? Why do some manufacturers specify an empty CG even though aircraft are not operated at empty weight? When the empty weight CG falls within the empty weight CG range, When the empty weight CG falls within the empty weight CG range, it is unnecessary to perform a weight and balance check if standard loading and seating arrangements are used. That's the answer. Why must the aircraft category be considered when computing weight and balance? Some aircraft certify in both normal and utility categories. This means a different maximum allowable gross weight depending on which category the aircraft will be operated in for that day. 2 different useful load calculations. Some are acrobatic and some will be just standard. Where is the center of gravity located in relation to the aerodynamic center of lift for most airplanes? In front of the center of lift. So the center of gravity is in front of the center of lift because they always want it to pitch nose down. You don't want it to fall with the tail down. What are 2 common ways of representing the CG of an aircraft? Inches from the datum or percent of mean aerodynamic corridor, percent of Mach. Is there a federal regulation that requires the regular reweighing of private aircraft? Nope, there is no requirement to reweigh it. Where must a record of the most recent empty weight and center of gravity be kept? Should be maintained in the aircraft flight manual or weight and balance records in accordance with FAR 231583. What should be done regarding aircraft fuel when performing weight and balance? When draining is not an option. If you can't drain the fuel, well, when weighing an aircraft with full tanks, the exact weight per gallon should be verified with a hydrometer. Then the weight of the useful fuel must be mathematically subtracted in the weight and balance calculations. So you're just going to calculate the weight that's in there and minus it. How should aircraft fuel be drained for weight and balance? Level the aircraft per the TCDS and then drain the fuel system until empty, which will leave unusable fuel in the system. What is ballast? Ballast can be lead bars, metal plates, shot bags, sandbags, or other items of weight which are placed in the aircraft to attain a desirable center of gravity. If the forward CG limit of an aircraft is exceeded, after installing several items in the engine compartment, how could the limit be returned to limits without removing or changing of the newly installed equipment? Well, if you had too much forward CG, you could add ballast in the rear of the aircraft, and that would bring it from way pitched down to back to a more level flight. What are the placard requirements for ballast? The ballast location must have a placard stating any limitations on content, including weight, that are necessary under the loading requirements. What is recommended for marking a permanent ballast? In red paint, mark with permanent ballast, do not remove. So you got to tell it, permanent ballast, do not remove. How should an aircraft be leveled for weighing during a weight and balance? Should be leveled per the requirements of the aircraft specifications or the type data certificate sheet, TCDS. Name one common method of leveling an aircraft during weight and balance. You can use a spirit level at the manufacturer's designated leveling points or the use of a built-in leveling scale or protractor and plumb bob. Describe a plumb bob and its use. It is a heavy object in the form of a cone that is used to determine a spot directly below the point the tool is hanging from. How can you determine if a part will affect CG without weighing the aircraft? The effect can be determined by basic computations if the weight and balance records are up to date. If the records are up to date, basic weight and balance computations may be used. What does the term mean aerodynamic chord, MAC, refer to? The MAC is the average chord or distance from the leading edge to the trailing edge of an airfoil. Okay, the MAC is the average chord or distance. So you're from the front to the back of the wing or airfoil. Why are accurate, up-to-date, empty weight CG data so important? All other weight and balance calculations are based on the empty weight CG. That's why it's important. Before a helicopter is weighed, it must be leveled in what directions? Longitudinally and laterally. And that takes us to fluid lines, and I'm going to stop for tonight because I'm super tired and I got a 12-hour drive tomorrow. And I'll put this online for you guys to check out on YouTube.